like your iPhone knows you all too well? For example, one minute you could be having a conversation about going to a restaurant, and then the next minute ads for that restaurant are all over your phone. Yeah, well, you're not the only one catching on to this.
Well, yeah, I feel like somebody's watching. They know they're collecting that data.
If you're like Cliff Ayers, you've searched for a product, in this case, golf clubs, and then noticed a burst of advertising on your phone about golf clubs.
I don't care for it, no. If I want to go find something on boats or golf, I'll go look for it. I don't need to have ads come flooding into me.
It's called app tracking, apps talking to one another about what you're most interested in.
The idea is that apps can work together that allow them to track that identifier across different platforms.
The antitrust debate, it's already happening on Capitol Hill. Lawmakers hearing from app developers who say companies like Apple and Google have too much power.
So Apple will now have to address these concerns in court after a federal judge said on Thursday that they will face a class action lawsuit claiming that the voice-activated Siri feature violates users' privacy. Join me now to weigh in, criminal defense attorney and anchor at Law and Crime Network, Bob Bianchi. Bob, it's so great to see you. So, Bob, this is something I've complained about for a long time, like trying to get to the bottom of why my phone kind of like knows way too much, or all these weird ads keep popping up when I didn't even do a Google search. So it's clear that the phone is listening to some conversations or something. And I swear, even one time, I was just like thinking about something, I got to add about it. Didn't even say it out loud. So I could see why people are totally freaked out. And I think a lot of people don't understand how much of our information is out there that our phones and our computers and stuff are collecting.
Stephanie, even the more maddening situation to me is that when you purchase the product, eventually they keep sending you more and more ads filling up your feed. But to the legality of what's happening here, wow, how far we've come. Back in the day, you used to be able to a company could be fined for sending you unsolicited faxes to your fax machine because people back then really respected privacy and didn't want these companies invading their fax machines and their privacy. Now, we're getting to a point where these apps are able to actually capture conversations that are occurring, in my mind, in violation of the Federal Wiretap Act, and then utilizing that data against you, if you will, in terms of these ads. So this is really a big issue. This is not something to be taken lightly. We have gone down this slippery slope where we've lost our privacy, and now these companies are listening in to our conversations, which to me is illegal, if not completely immoral.
Well, and people that are wanting to participate in this class action lawsuit, what do you think? What do you think their claims would be? Like, how much damages did they occur by having their information taken and then given to a third party?
Well, with regard to any civil rights lawsuit, the big hammer there is legal fees, believe it or not, because sometimes the damages to the consumer are very difficult to calculate. But there is a value. A jury would determine that if you ever went to trial as to what was this invasion of privacy worth to that particular person. But again, you go back to any civil rights suit, in the process of all of that legal work that's done, if a plaintiff is successful in suing the company, then they're going to be required to pay the legal fees there. And on a class action suit, that could also be many plaintiffs now, if a court certifies a class action suit, where many plaintiffs can receive even a little bit, but it adds up over a while. So it can, look, Apple can sustain probably the financial hit here, so they also got to be hit with the court of public opinion that's just not going to tolerate this. But in my mind, only until their bottom line is hurt with regard to sales will they really have any meaningful reaction. One caveat: unless the U.S. Attorney's Office gets involved, either the civil division or the criminal division, to say, wait a second, this is an organized attempt to capture data in violation of that Wiretap Act. That will frighten some corporate executives.
Yeah, and then with these complaints out in the open, does Apple have any responsibility or duty to make an effort to fix whatever is happening in regards to audio being captured by Siri? And I know there is a feature on your iPhone where you can go turn Siri off, so you have that option. Or would that mean they're admitting guilt if they make any changes?
No, it's funny. I was just dealing with a case like this in my own law practice. It's always better to correct the action. Typically speaking, if a company corrects an action that cannot be used against them in a court of law, the public policy behind that is in our evidence rules, is that they don't want to stop companies from doing the right thing. So corrective action will not hurt them. They would be wise to do this so that they could say, we limited the damages that occurred here. We recognized what was happening. Maybe it was a computer glitch. Maybe it wasn't. A lot's going to come out as to what the the facts are. But if the facts come out in discovery that these individuals were purposefully listening to people's conversations without them knowing about it, yeah, correct it as quickly as you can, but that's a problem.
Yeah, and then if people are worried about Surrey, they better be worried about their Alexas at home, because that's just gathering stuff all day long too. You'd be surprised what your Alexa's getting. Now I want to shift gears here and ask you about this. Obviously, I'm sure you noticed that there was a lot of outrage over the Texas election bill that was just recently signed by Governor Abbott, and the lawsuits have already begun. Several lawsuits have already been filed. Do you think these lawsuits are going to go anywhere? I know that the Republicans had worked really hard putting together this bill. Obviously, it's passed. So do you see it going anywhere? Their argument is that it makes it harder to vote. I don't see that, but obviously, politically speaking, the Republicans say this isn't about politics. We just want to make it harder to cheat, actually easier to vote.
Yeah, this is going to be a hard one for people to prevail, in my opinion, legally on, because the states are given the obligation to be able to pass laws, of course, if they're not in violation of the Voting Rights Act. But the Supreme Court has essentially gutted pretty much the Voting Rights Act. That's where this controversy is coming in. That's why even the Democratic elected officials realize that they need a legislative fix in the federal government in order to overcome that states' rights issue, where states can decide how they're going to run their elections. So both given the fact that the Supreme Court has gutted out the Voting Rights Act, as well as the idea that the Democrats aren't going to be able to get enough votes, it doesn't seem, in order to change comprehensive voter reform, it's going to twist and wind its way through the system, but ultimately it's going to go to what I believe is going to be a very accommodating Supreme Court that is accommodating to states' rights to handle elections as they see fit.
Yeah, and specifically, the new law includes protections for poll watchers, rules on ballot harvesting, and a ban on drive-through voting. Now, Texas was also a lot in the news this week. I'm sure you saw their new abortion bill. That is, after a 6 week, if a baby in the womb has a heartbeat, you can't get an abortion anymore. So we saw a lot of companies stepping in that are against this, like Uber and Lyft, and they were saying that if anyone is charged, that they would come in with, they would assist with legal fees. That is, if in part of the bill is if you report somebody that's getting an abortion, like you could get like $10,000 or something. So they want to protect those drivers. Is that a slippery slope for these companies?
I don't know, Stephanie. This law was written in a way that's really peculiar to me as a lawyer. This piece where we have basically a private police force, if you will, that can go out and sue somebody and get $10,000 if you either had an abortion or you aided or assisted, which they're saying if you drive somebody to an abortion clinic, the company is saying, wait a second, our drivers aren't there to vet where people are going or what they're doing. We just give people a ride from this place to that place, so we shouldn't be held responsible. I don't think the company's going down a slippery slope. I think that a court could be somewhat sympathetic to the idea that how is the driver supposed to know whether this person is 6 weeks or not 6 weeks? Are they supposed to start asking questions and invade their privacy? Excuse me, I can't give you a ride if you're 6.4 weeks or if you're 7 weeks, but I can if you're 5 weeks. I mean, it just opens up, like, criminal laws or laws in general require that somebody has knowledge and aids and abets somebody in either committing a crime or a violation of the law. And I just don't understand how a Lyft driver or an Uber driver giving somebody a ride, even to an abortion clinic, should be not have knowledge as to whether or not that person is over 6 weeks or not. So I could see a court saying it's unconstitutionally vague and puts restrictions on people that shouldn't be there. I just think it's written in a peculiar way.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's a little bit confusing, as you pointed out, that how would a driver, how are they supposed to know? It would be probably like case-by-case basis, because sometimes, if you've ever been in a Lyft or Uber, drivers will talk, drivers will ask you questions. And so if the information is just put out there, then you could see that it was potentially in violation of the law. That being said, would Uber and Lyft really want to pay for all these legal fees? I mean, I don't know how prevalent it will be. It's hard to tell right now, but is that somewhere that a company would actually want to go? Maybe they think it's good publicity for them.
Yeah, I don't know what their decision-making process is, but Uber and Lyft have basically said this is what they're going to do. They did the cost-benefit analysis in their company. I just don't think you're going to get a plethora, as you've indicated, of suits that they're going to have to defend, because I think it's going to be very difficult for people to be able to prove it, like I said previously. But for those few off that they wind up getting, maybe it's a company to support their drivers. Maybe it's for publicity. Who knows? They've made the decision that they're willing to take it to court and see whether or not a court upholds it. So all they've got to do, Stephanie, is get a court to say, no, this is unconstitutionally vague, or this law is just not properly written as it relates to people who drive somebody to an abortion clinic, and the law could potentially be thrown out. So how far they go, if there's thousands of these, would they continue to do that? I'm sure the company would reposition with regard to whether they're going to continue to pay.
Definitely. Well, Bob, thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Coming